Hey there everyone, and welcome back to RPG Horror Stories with D&D Doge. In today's episode, we have a tale about a dungeon master that wants his players to roll for an odd stat, a story about one player's run-in with two flavors of that guy, and much more. But before we get into those, Alice has a request. I'm sure they will, Allie. I'm sure they will. But anyway, with that said, let's get right into these stories. Problematic Wizard by Reddit user 777zenon777. So, this will be a two-part story. Both parts are about the same campaign, but with two different players and two different periods. This is the first part. It all began after Session 0. We were supposed to be a group of adventurers, travelers, and mercenaries that decided to join their forces and create their own mercenary band or guild. Everyone was on board with this idea. At least, that's what we thought. Enter the problem player character, Morius. Morius was a wizard. Morius was an asshole to everyone. By that, I mean every time he roleplayed his character always thought that he was the smartest one, and everyone around him was an idiot. He also had a habit to facepalm and talking about how he works with incompetent idiots on any occasion. You failed a check, incompetent. You miss a hit, incompetent. You fail at persuasion, idiot. Get hit, idiot. You get the idea. It got old really fast, but I decided not to talk about it yet because I thought maybe it will change with time. So anyway, Session 1 started with our characters joining forces to defeat a group of undead that attacked a village. We succeed, but we also found out that there is more of them coming from the old caves in the forest. We all wanted to go there and check what was going on. Everyone but Morius. He said that he won't want to because he already used all of his spell slots and that his character wanted to go back to the wagon. We were traveling with a caravan at the time. We told him that we can rest here, but he didn't care. We told him that together we have a better chance. He didn't care. We told him that we can earn some gold, but he didn't care about the gold. We told him that maybe there's a necromancer who makes those monsters, and maybe he has some powerful magic items. He didn't care about magic items or power. He also didn't care about helping innocent people in need, or our characters offering him some favors to help. At this point, everyone was frustrated. And out of game, the DM told him that, fine, your character leaves, make a new character. Imagine the surprise on his face. He was trying to argue, but our DM had none of it. He told him to either make a character that wants to be in the party, or leave his table. He chose the second option. So we left him, and the DM gave us an NPC to help us with the mission, and that NPC is still with us to this day. Problematic Princess. This is the second part of the story of our small mercenary guild, and a few weeks had passed since the problematic wizard incident. Our party had its own small caravan now, some NPCs to help us, and the NPC that the DM gave us to replace the wizard became our quartermaster. So, this story starts with us picking up a new recruit for our small company. Enter Evelyn. Evelyn was a fighter, and Evelyn was, something we didn't know at the beginning, a princess from a faraway country. Her backstory was, basically, that she had enough of living in the castle, surrounded by servants, and she didn't want to marry some rich asshole just to make her family even richer. As far as I know, our DM was a bit hesitant about this idea, but she told him not to worry about it because she is not going to use any tricks to get more power or money, because her character cut herself off from her royal past. I can tell you already, this was a lie. From the second Evelyn joined our party, she was trying to take control and decide about everything. What our party will do, where they will go, what they will buy. She had to argue about everything, but since we were always voting about what our band will do, things didn't go her way most of the time, which was making her very frustrated. A few of the times we decided to do something her way, and it worked out, she was so full of herself, talking about how we should always listen to her because she is right. Anyway, things went downhill really fast after this. Our party was deciding where to travel next. We wanted to go east, to the land divided by war, because of course there will be work for mercenaries. She wanted to go west because of, yes. We put it to a vote, and she lost 1-5. This made her really unhappy. She then revealed that she is actually a princess, and the place that we wanted to head to was pretty close to the kingdom she came from, so we shouldn't go there. She was also really shocked that a group of mercenaries that works for money and their own benefit didn't really want to bow down to a princess from a family that they don't care about, from a country that they've never been in. She was really angry and started yelling at us out of character that we are metagaming and playing our characters the wrong way, because we of course should listen to her because she is a princess. The DM decided that it was better to call off the session and talk about it later. He did try to talk to her later and asked her to calm down, but she told him that she didn't care anyway, because the story was boring, the game was boring, and we were bad players anyway, so she leaves. No one was stopping her. But here comes the best part. After her character left the party, we sent a message to her family about where she is, and got paid in silver for the information. Well, it sounds like OP had a run-in with two different flavors of that guy. First, the wizard was a that guy that wanted to be a loner, and a character that was always insulting the others in the party, and then wouldn't join the party. I guess he didn't realize that it was a cooperative game, and that constantly insulting the others, even if it was in character, can get old real fast. Then we have the princess, who was a spotlight hog, and wanted everyone to do what she wanted to do all the time. Then, when she doesn't get her way, insults the players, the DM, and the game he's running for her. Good riddance to both these players, I say. Though, what are your thoughts? Let's move on. DM uses my character for her sexual fantasy. By Reddit user GlitteringMix1301. I was in a D&D campaign for about a year now. My character was a homebrewed kobold barbarian. During the start of the campaign, I convinced her to allow my kobold to essentially shift into a dragonborn when he raged via magic tattoos. This was due to him being from a tribe of kobolds who favored strength and chose their champion via gladiatorial combat. The purpose of the champion was to serve as a display of strength and power to the rival tribes. Though being slightly airheaded, he was very much into blood sports and honored combat, with a severe case of small man syndrome. So he would rage often when being teased excessively about his height. This is important to the story. I'd say the moment red flags started popping up was after one interaction several months in with a traveling merchant NPC. When bartering for a magic weapon that she had on sale, she made a snarky comment about him being too small for it. And so, for the sake of fun and context, I popped rage and aimed to intimidate her. I'm not sure if I failed or succeeded that role, but she made a counteroffer to sleep with my character in exchange for a discount. Obviously, I had nothing to lose, so I accepted, and after that, it went downhill from there. The amount of female NPCs trying to get under my barbarian's skin was never ending. Of course, there were the intentional flirty ones who were in my character's face about it, but there were some who played it passive-aggressively. It got to the point where most of my interactions with female characters turned into a teasing session, which I was sort of thrown off by. I grew tired of it and started outright rejecting advantages, and this is where it gets worse. One day, my kobold suddenly loses the ability to transform for seemingly no reason, so I thought it was a special arc made for my character. I have him return to his tribe and talk with the shaman to find out why he's lost his power and get some guidance on getting his powers back. The DM tells me that the marks of the champion are a symbol of conquest and is fueled by spilling blood or quote-unquote claiming others. Which from this point on essentially meant that in order to have my kobold undergo a transformation when they raged, I either needed to religiously A. outright murder someone, or B. bone someone with the intent to make them pregnant. Needless to say, I was confused at first. But when I asked the people at the table in private, the solutions were murdering some bandits or going to a brothel. Since no one made a fuss, I just kinda kept my mouth shut about it. But it was at this point that I started to lose touch with my character. But the icing on the cake was when we captured a sorceress lackey of the BBEG, and I went to interrogate them in the cells. And instead of being intimidating, she ended up casting Charm on my barbarian. He failed, and the DM had me roll another will save to resist their attempt at seducing him. He failed again, and in a lustful rage, they apparently ended up doing it through the bars, and I got no further information. After that instance, I just checked out. I dodged a few sessions without telling anyone, before just letting them know that I quit entirely. Yeah, I can see how that could be a bit annoying, having your character's power taken by a DM that just wants to keep doing adult scenes with OP. Though, this is an example of why Session 0 and communication is key to any tabletop RPGs. Sure, what that DM was doing was a bit cringe, though the main takeaway I have from this story is when OP stated that it bothered him, but didn't say anything, and just essentially ghosted the group. How are they supposed to know that that made you feel uncomfortable unless you tell them? If OP would have said something about it, there is a high probability that the DM would have stopped, and you could have continued the game with what sounded like a great character concept. But now, all the group knows is that OP left for no reason. Though, that is just my thoughts on the matter. Remember, talk to your fellow players if something about a game is bothering you. Let's move on. Roll for body part sizes. By Reddit user, Chaotic Tapestry. While I've roleplayed a lot, and in many places and ways, I'd never done tabletop roleplay until several years ago. The person, who we will call that guy, dragged me into it, and is now my ex. He convinced me that my issues with it were all just hang-ups about not being used to the way things are with tabletop games. Hold that thought. I was dragged into several private campaigns between just that guy and myself, with his homebrew campaigns, and sometimes group games that never lasted, that involved that guy DMing for a group of other people that included myself. That guy would pull me aside before Session 0 or Session 1 every new campaign to tell me how. 1. He knew deep down inside I was going to make a character that was going to go completely out of the bounds of his expectations. 2. The character I'd make would be too comedic for the session, and this was a reminder not to ruin his experience. 3. That I would upset his carefully constructed stories. Or 4. We're the same character every time. They were not even remotely similar. Fun fact, while I have a sense of humor as a player, I typically don't play comedic or joke characters, and I never, ever tried to deliberately bother a DM, GM, storyteller, etc. I try to explore the storyline canvas they're painting for me as a player. Anyway, that guy would lecture me about my failures as a roleplayer, and then say that I was being manipulative and distracting from his ability to share his feelings when I eventually started crying, since this would often be an hour or more of getting blasted, and I'd eventually tear up. Then we'd go to the session with the expectation that I'd learned something from that conversation, and would behave, or something. So I'd fake being cheerful and wouldn't actually have any fun until later sessions in every campaign, and the fun was always with the other players, trying to have normal character interactions. But that's not all. No, that guy needed people to roleplay sex or sexual traits, even when they felt it wasn't something that their character would focus on or do. We're all adults in these sessions, but many times, people would say that they didn't feel like their character's genitalia descriptions really needed to matter. And the response would instead be, "I think it's important we explore why you feel like that in a fictional setting. Let's roll for the size of your character's, insert primary or secondary sexual traits here. You don't mind if I roll the size for you, right? Oh, I rolled a 20. So let's say that your character's trait is huge." And somehow, we would all try to give that guy the benefit of the doubt and go, well, that's weird. But that initial thought seemed to be coming from a good place. Right? Right? The correct answer is no. But my group of socially awkward friends sure thought otherwise at the time. Eventually, I started asking him, why is he yelling at me at the start of new campaigns for reasons I've been able to repeatedly prove are incorrect? Why is he pushing sexual content on myself and others when we clearly don't really want to focus on it? Why did that guy's thoughts and feelings on campaigns matter more than everyone else's? Why were these concerns things that were just, in his words, how things are with tabletop games? Eventually, I dropped all the campaigns with that guy and exited his life. Later on, I found out that there were several attempted campaigns with other people one-on-one who dropped the campaigns immediately because he tried to make them roll for the size of their character's chest or lower half. And I commend these people for having the common sense that I lacked back then. Jesus. Thank God OP got out of that relationship and the DM's games. The whole rolling for sizes part is kind of weird, and it sounded like the DM just wanted to get off on playing the game, in which case, he might be better off playing Fatal. But the worst part about this story, in my opinion, is how the DM would emotionally manipulate OP by berating her about how she roleplayed, and then have the audacity to claim that she was being emotionally manipulative to him when she would come to tears. That's like textbook manipulation tactics there. So yeah, good on OP for eventually realizing this and kicking that DM to the curb. Let's move on. One of these things is not like the other. By Reddit user Eldritch Stern. Campaign is a Monty Hall, as in, the GM is giving away XP and loot like it's a game show giveaway. All of us are at the table for Beer and Pretzels gameplay, where no one has to think too hard, and it's a power fantasy. A couple of players even have mental disabilities IRL, and will break down if their characters lose so much as half of their hit points. So the table enjoys the fact that this game is no real challenge. We're all just there to hang out, have fun with friends, and imagine being our badass self-inserts for 4 hours. Then the power gamer joins the party. He's there for high-tension gameplay, expecting the game to be deadly. He's mildly disappointed to find out what our table is actually about, but doesn't mind too much. He winds up becoming the party investigator, one of the only players interacting with the GM's world lore, since the rest of us are just there for haha math rocks go click clack, and the GM is thankful to have a player super immersed into his world. Then the horror happens. The main GM has to take a 1-week break, but the table still wants to play. Who's the only player at the table who's super deep into the world lore? Yep, the GM handed the reins to the power gamer, who now had all of the power to make his high-tension, super deadly session a reality. But here's the plot twist. No one knew until after the power gamer session that the table only really wanted easy mode. See, the temporary GM went out of his way to ask every player if they would be okay with a more intense session. We all said yes, and 2 even acted like total badasses who were excited at the prospect. But as the session unfolded and HP was dropping fast, we all finally realized how attached we were to our characters. We didn't know the handicapped players would break down if their characters dropped to half. It never happened before. Honestly, none of us were really having fun anymore at the thought of our characters being in actual mortal danger, but we had already said yes to the temporary GM and felt doomed to our fates. Funny enough, the 2 would-be badasses were the fastest to get pissy when their characters dropped to a quarter health. You know the type, the ones who act like cocksure alphas, but just get super angry as soon as they hit any real difficulty. So the whole session got retconned next week, and the campaign happily concluded shortly thereafter. But for that one session, emotions ran real high. I suppose it was a good thing that we knew afterwards exactly what each of us wanted in a tabletop RPG. Well, I wouldn't necessarily call this a horror story, but I'm sure people whose characters were about to die were horrified at the moment. It sounds like the players just never had experience with a more serious game of D&D, and were a little too headstrong at the prospect. At least the story ends well, with the retconning of the character's peril, and everyone figuring out what they want from a tabletop RPG. And that is all we have time for today. As always, I appreciate all of you, and so does Alice. Until next time.